probably in a long time. And before we get into the subject of the conversation, we always like to recognize the top performers because top performers deserve to be recognized. Let's see, for this past week in the $2,000 club, we have two agents, Gary Blazer, $2,468.04. And right behind them is France Andre with $2,320.32. That's like a $10 a month, $12 a month premium difference. So neck and neck right there. Good job, guys. And then honorable mention, we have Miss Ariana Gaines. Her first week, she wrote $1,740. And then we also have honorable mention out of Alabama, Russ Johnson, $1,480.68. I think Russ has felt that the leads is the way to go. Want to remind everybody there's a Zoom call at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time today with Ron Powell. For the new agents, Ron Powell is our CEO and president. Ron Powell, when he was younger, he used to run final expense direct mail leads in the field, just like a lot of the field agents do. He's heard the same stuff we all have heard. Let me think about it. Let me talk to my children. We've already got it taken care of. Yada, 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 yada. He's worked leads. Some of them have phone numbers. Some of them don't. Some leads have the person's age. Some of them don't. Some leads have the spouse's name. Some of them don't. You never know when you work a lead what it's going to provide to you till you go make contact and have a conversation. Now, with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into telesales. Let me start off by saying telesales is not as easy as it sounds. You have to have a certain kind of mindset to do well with this because, you're talking to Miss Jones and you cannot see her. She cannot see you. All Miss Jones or Mr. Jones or the both of them can go by is how you sound on the phone. So with that being said, how you sound on the phone is critical. We've all had telemarketers call us up. It sounded like they were reading the script and they were stumbling along. You cannot sound like that. You just can't. There's no getting around it. You just cannot. You have to be well rehearsed, very familiar, very confident, at ease, peace with the world, et cetera, et cetera. And that comes with practice. It's like when you start driving a car. When you first drive a car, you're real nervous. But after you start driving the car, you can drive with one finger on the steering wheel, take your eyes off the road. No big deal because you're comfortable, you're confident, and you're familiar with it. Same thing with telesales. So talking about telesales, there's two types of telesales for final expense. There's either outbound calls or there's live transfer calls. And we're going to discuss both of those, and we'll get into further along the way with objections, et cetera. Outbound phone calls is where you have the lead's name and phone number in front of you, and you make a phone call to that number. It's very similar to if you're a field agent and you're calling to make appointments, you call the number. Well, with outbound telesales, you're calling the number, and when you get the person on the phone, you get a presentation in, and hopefully you make a sale. Outbound phone calls are different nowadays than they were, say, 10 or 15 years ago. And, I'm very familiar with telesales from Ron Powell and his dad back around 2004. I don't know who it was, but one of them said, if term insurance can be sold over the phone, how come we can't sell final expense over the phone? Thing led to another. They started selling final expense over the phone in 2004. Me personally, I started selling final expense over the phone in 2005. Over, maybe 13, 14, 15 years before other final expense carriers started to try telesales. COVID encouraged a lot of these other carriers to do this. So from 2005 to probably, I'm going to say around 2012, I did nothing but personal production. I had a few agents. didn't recruit very heavy. I focused on personal production. And I'd say for that approximately 7-year stretch, I did 0 face-to-face sales. Everything was strictly telesales. So everything I'm sharing with you is, I know what I'm talking about. You know, sometimes you have people telling you things and they don't know what they're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. So just take it, absorb it, and apply it. But going back to outbound phone calls, 15 years ago, 13 years ago, whatever, people would answer the phone easily when you made an outbound phone call. Number one, very few people had caller ID, so they picked the phone up out of curiosity, so who's calling, because they didn't know if it was a family member or whoever it was, so they pick it up. Nowadays, we've got all these people from overseas, Pakistan, I guess, that are blasting people with telemarketing calls. So nowadays, when you make an outbound phone call, Miss Jones has a lower probability of picking up the phone because her caller ID does not recognize your number as somebody she knows. So she may just let the phone call go to her voicemail and not even bother picking it up. And in just a little while, we'll discuss how you want to overcome that also. Right now, I'm just highlighting the differences between outbound and live transfers. Another thing about outbound phone calls, it's going to always seem like there's about, I don't know, maybe 15% of the people that you just can't ever catch up with for some reason with telesales. You know, you can call them weeks on end and they never pick up the phone. If you're doing face-to-face sales, you can go knock on the door. If they're not home, leave a delivery note. But with telesales, if they're in another state, for example, you cannot go knock on their door. So when you do outbound telesales, you know, 15%, somewhere in that area is going to be people you just don't ever talk to. Another thing with outbound phone calls is you got to make several phone calls usually before you can make contact with Miss Jones. Maybe Miss Jones has not avoided your phone calls, but she's either at the doctor's one time you called, she's out at the grocery store another time, a different time that you called. She's over at the grandchildren's another different time you call, and you just never called at the right time. The other hand, maybe she does not recognize your number. She does not answer the phone for that specific reason. The best way to combat that is to do what we call the triple dial. Dial the number, let it ring 2, maybe 3 times and hang up. Immediately dial the number again, let it ring 2 or 3 times and hang up. Immediately dial it again the 3rd time, this time let it ring and ring and ring. The reason you do that is Miss Jones is caller IDing you and she does not answer the phone because she does not recognize your phone number. When you pull the stunt, 2 rings, hang up, 2 rings again, hang up, dial back and let it ring, she's probably going to pick the phone up out of curiosity to see what in the world's going on. And then you kind of finesse your way like, hey, Miss Betty, blah, 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 blah. But that's how you kind of get them to answer the phone if they're caller IDing you. And if you call that 3rd time and it rings and rings, nobody picks up the phone and you get a voicemail, don't leave a message. Because when Miss Jones gets back home and she sees your number on her caller ID at least 3 times, if you've not left a message, she will call you back, usually out of curiosity to see who's calling her so many times. If you do leave a message, her curiosity's been satisfied. She has less motivation to call you back because she's, you know, she knows who you are now, so she'll just say, well, I'll call him back later, or I'll wait till he calls me back later, whatever the case may be. So just don't leave a message on voicemail. Keep the curiosity factor up. It's kind of like at the front door if you're working direct mail leads face-to-face, and they come through the door, it's like, yes, ma'am, I'm hoping you can help me. I don't know if I'm at the right place, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, I've got the free information about the Social Security death benefit, the high cost of funerals, the state regulated plans. And I also have the other information on how people all over Concord are now saving $3,000 to $6,000 on their funeral expenses. Anyway, I've got your free information right here. May I come in, please? At the door, when you say that, that gets their curiosity up so they invite you in more easily. On telesales, you do not leave a message, so they'll call you back more easily because they're curious. Also, if you were to ask me, what's the best time of the day to call a lead? anytime between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. in the customer's time zone. Those are the legal times you can call somebody back. Now, if it's a live transfer at 10 p.m., well, actually, if it's a live transfer at a different time, it's okay to call them back. But anytime between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. customer's time zone, if you call them back much after 9 p.m., they might get irritable. If you call them much earlier than 9 a.m., their time zone, they might get irritable also. So between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., there's no magic. There's no rhyme or reason. The only magic is make the phone calls. Whoever makes the most phone calls makes the most sales. Just like in the field, whoever knocks on the most doors makes the most sales. So whoever knocks on the most doors makes the most presentations, makes the most sales. Whoever makes the most phone calls, they also make the most presentations and they make the most sales. It's activity. So the main thing is you have to dial the number. Now, what happens if you dial that number morning, afternoon, and evening, different times between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., you dial that number pretty much every day, 5 and 8 times a day, and they never pick up the phone. Well, excuse me. After that, drastic situations require drastic measures. And if I've got a lead I paid for, doesn't matter if it's a TV lead, multi-source lead, even a direct mail lead, I'm doing telesales and I've done everything the correct way. I've called Monday through Saturday, a few Sunday afternoons. I never can get anybody to answer the phone. And I've never left a voicemail. I just hang up and they still don't call me back. And that can happen. Leave a message now. Now it's time to change my approach. So this time, this is the lead I've dialed morning, noon, and night for a couple of weeks. Nobody ever answers the phone. And I've dialed that number several times a day, every day, even Sunday afternoons. When I get that voice message, here's basically what I'm going to say. Hey, Miss Betty, this is Greg. I'm not a telemarketer. I'm getting back in touch with you about that check for your family. It's a rather large check, so please call me back between the hours of 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. I know they're going to be closing your file in a few days. Please hurry before it's too late. Click. That's it. Why do I say that? Am I misleading the people? No, I'm not misleading. I am calling her back about that check for her family. The check that her family is going to get when she passes away. She initiated this. I'm not cold. She initiated more information by responding to the ad, TV commercial, multi-source, Facebook, internet, whatever. She wants information. I've tried to get it to her. She's nowhere to be found. So I leave her that message about the check. Now, in just a moment, I'll tell you what you say when she calls you back. But just to review, I'm going to say, hey, Miss Betty, my name's Greg, and I'm not a telemarketer. I'm getting back in touch with you about that check for your family. Now, it's a rather large check, so please call me back between the hours of 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. I know they're going to be closing your file in a few days. Please hurry before it's too late. Click. That will usually provoke Miss Betty to call and find out what kind of check. If I had if I said those same words with an accent of someone from Pakistan, she might think it's a scam, but I'm an American guy. She can tell I'm an American guy, got a Southern accent. So when she hears that word about the check, she's going to probably call me back and say, what kind of, and when she calls me back, she's going to say, my name's Barry. Is this Greg? I'm going to say, yes, ma'am, it sure is. What's this thing about a check you left me a message on? I'm going to say, oh, Miss Mary, this is the free information about a check for your family when you pass away. You had called our commercial a while back, and you wanted the free information on how you can leave a check to your family so they can deal with the high cost of a funeral home and there's no financial embarrassment. How are you doing today? And at that point in time, they might say, oh, I'm not interested, and hang up on them. Throw them in the trash can. Be done with it. That's just a type of no. Or if they have an interest, they'll let you keep talking to them. And the quality of how you talk to them will have somewhat of an influence on how many sales you make versus somebody else working the same lead. So now we talked about outbound phone calls. Let's talk about live transfers. They're incoming. To highlight the difference, we know with outbound calls, telesales, there's going to be probably 10, 15, 18% of the people we never contact for some reason. Even if we leave the message about a large check for your family, some of those still will not call back. Now with live transfers, which are inbound, you have 100% contact rate with the leads. You don't have to worry about 15% never being contacted. 100% is going to be contacted. You cannot get a lead any fresher than a live transfer because it's just a minute or two old, and you just can't have a lead any fresher than that. Closing percent on inbound live transfers, probably similar to outbound telesales. Closing percent for live transfers and outbound is about the same, but the way that live transfers really boost your income tremendously is you've eliminated all the wasted time of making phone calls so you can make contact with somebody. Transfers, you're connected with just a few minutes after Miss Jones calling the commercial on TV, if it's a TV lead, for example. So what happens is even if the closing percent with telesales live transfers is a little bit less than it would be face-to-face, the fact that you can squeeze in so many more presentations in a 40-hour work week with live transfers, you'll actually make more profit per hour with live transfers, even though your closing percent is not as high as it would be face-to-face, because you're making more profit per hour with telesales, because you eliminate a lot of the wasted time. Most of your time is spent in conversation mode rather than dialing mode. And you see some of the agents writing 30 and 40,000, maybe more per month. A lot of them are doing telesales with live transfers. Now, if you were to ask me, Greg, which is the best way, live transfers or face-to-face? I'm going to say they both work. And I'll tell you this proof. You take Jesse Sanders. He's on Billy Pilcher's team. He does field sales. And this past December, January, February, and March, 4 months in a row, each month he wrote over $40,000 each month doing it in the field. And he was working 50 leads per week, every week. He never called his manager and said, I've got plenty of leads left over, I'll skip this week. He wanted 50 leads a week. He pretty much demanded 50 leads a week. People he couldn't catch this week, he'll catch next week, and so on. The other hand, you can take someone like Bianca or Jen, those two girls out of Louisiana on David Price's team. They focus on telesales nowadays. A year and a half ago, they were focused on face-to-face sales and tearing it up, writing 35, 40, 42, 43,000 a month in the field. Now they do the same thing on the phone with telesales. So both methods work. In fact, Bianca issued just over 50,000 this past month, the month of July. So telesales or face-to-face sales, they both work if you want to write the numbers. So what's the common denominator between the two platforms? Get yourself a fistful of leads, put in a tremendous amount of hours, and be laser focused every single day, every single hour, every single presentation. Don't shortcut anything. And to work 50 leads a week in the field, you're going to have to put in about 60 hours a week, Monday through Saturday, if you want to work them properly. That just comes with the territory. You cannot expect to be one of the top 5 agents in the nation without putting in a little elbow grease or a lot of elbow grease. On the other hand, if Jesse can issue 40,000 working 50 leads in the field, Jen can issue 40,000 with telesales, but she might need 70 or 75 leads versus 50 leads. And she may write her 40,000 in less number of hours than Jesse can do his 40,000. And the reason Jen can do hers faster per hour is because she's doing telesales. When you sit down and crunch the numbers out, let the dust settle, you realize, they both yield about the same amount of profitability per hour. It's just a matter of which one do you like the best. And I'm a firm believer you blend the two of them together. You just blend the two of them together. Another good thing about live transfers is, well, I mentioned this earlier, the lead is super fresh, just a couple minutes old. And now let's go over the mechanics of a live transfer, how it works, and how do you get involved, and how can you participate if that's what you have a goal to do. Pretend like it's a TV lead, because that's usually what a live transfer is. A lot of times we're multi-source, but I'm going to use TV lead because I'm more familiar with that. Miss Betty sees the TV commercial on TV talking about the senior care plan on TV, which is a senior life insurance company commercial. She sees the commercial, her interest is piqued. She wants to find out more about it. She runs and grabs a pen and paper so she can write down the phone number at the bottom of the TV screen, or she grabs her phone and dials the number on the bottom of the TV screen. And when she dials that number, the operator will answer the phone. The operator will get Miss Betty's name, address, birthday, occasionally an email address if they've got time, unless they're getting blasted with calls from people seeing the commercial. And she gets all that information, and before they hang up, the operator will ask Miss Betty, do you have time to speak with a licensed agent right now? Now, if Miss Betty says yes, that's a live transfer. And Miss Betty is calling from New Mexico. Only the agents that are licensed in New Mexico will get a notification that Miss Betty does a live transfer in New Mexico. If you're in California, and that's the only state you're in, you won't even know it. So everybody's licensed in New Mexico at the same time on the phone. They get and y'all have seen this, I'm sure. They'll say something like live transfer available, TV lead $44, purchase yes or no. The first one to click yes gets that lead. And then it immediately disappears off everybody else's phone because leads go to one person. And then once you purchase that lead, the operator, it kind of depends a little bit. The operator may say, I've got Betty Carroll on the phone. She's from Dallas, Texas. And you say, great, put her on the line. And then you start talking to her. And just because it's a live transfer does not mean it's going to buy, that's for sure. I remember a long time ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was down there in Thomasville, Georgia, where the home office is. We were having a big contest with telesales. And they were testing out live transfers. They were starting to introduce that. I remember the first 5 live transfers I worked, none of them bought. So, well, these leads are not that good. And then I thought to myself, it's only 5 leads. You cannot judge how good or how bad a lead is if you only work 5 of them. And for the rest of the week, I kind of found out, well, the leads are pretty good. They're just as good as any other lead, maybe a tiny bit better, because Miss Jones's buying temperature is a little bit higher then than it might be the next day. So live transfers is the way to go if you're going to do telesales in today's environment. 12, 15 years ago, it wouldn't matter. You can make outbound phone calls, people answer the phone regularly. But inbound live transfers is the most efficient way. So let's talk about, how do you participate in live transfers? Well, transfer leads are the same whether you make an outbound phone call or it's a TV lead's the same whether it's an outbound phone call or a live transfer. Leads don't change prices if it's a live transfer. It stays the same price. That's good. I emailed Wade Bone. He's in charge of the lead department a couple of weeks ago. And when they first started live transfers on a full-time basis a year or so ago, or a little longer, to be on tier 1, and tier 1 these are the top agents that get first shot at all the live transfers. To be on tier 1, you had to issue $11,000 for the month, and then you would be on tier 1 the following month. And once you're on tier one, it's pretty easy to stay on tier one every month because you're working live transfers and you're just making more sales per hour because you don't have any wasted time making phone calls with no answers. Well, since that time, Senior Life's grown. People's production has been improved. There's been telesales agents, good telesales agents, sharp telesales agents from other carriers that's come on board with Senior Life. And based upon the TV schedule they have running now, Wade says that he usually likes to have about 50 agents on the live transfers. And if you look at the top 50 agents normally issue at least 15,000 or more per month to get on tier one now. It used to be 11,000, now it's 15,000. So if you issue 15,000, that means you get first shot at live transfers. Now, with that being said, you cannot be licensed in 1 or 2 states. You want to be licensed in if you're on tier one, you want to be in 10 or 15 states for sure. Why? Because just because the live transfer comes in doesn't mean you're going to get it. There might be 38 other agents competing for that same live transfer. The first one that clicks yes gets it, remember. So you got to be Johnny on the spot. If you're a 1/10 of a second behind somebody else, you missed out. So you got to be licensed in multiple states, because what happens is if you're in multiple states, that opens up your window of availability of getting live transfers being in one state. Now, if you're not on tier one, well, let me back up. An agent could work completely in the field 1 month, just face to face, issue over 15 or 16,000, and be on tier one the following month and doing nothing but live transfers over the phone the following month. You can do it. That's an extreme example, but that's how it works. Now, if you're not on tier one, you still will get the opportunity to work some live transfers. It's just the live transfers you get sent your way are very, very small in number. And why do you even have a chance to get a live transfer if you're not on tier one? Well, if all the tier one, if Miss Jones is a live transfer, she just called in, she spoke to the operator, she's live transferred, but all the tier one agents are already on the phone, and there's no tier one agents available in that state. After about 8 seconds, that lead spills over to all the other agents licensed in that particular state. So if using New Mexico again, if Miss Jones is calling from New Mexico, all the tier one agents that's licensed in New Mexico are occupied. After about 8 seconds, that lead will spill over to all the rest of the agents that are licensed in New Mexico as a live transfer. And still the case, the first one to get it gets it. Once you buy it, then you get to see the information like the name, the birthday, address, phone number, etc. Now, if you're licensed in, say, 15 or 20 states, preferably 25 or 30 states, and you're not on tier one, you will get a decent number of live transfers coming your way. Simply because if you're licensed in 30 states, 40 states, 35 states, whatever, you've really opened up that window to the availability of live transfers. Even though you're not on tier one, because of the sheer number of states you're in, there's going to be a lot more occasions where tier one agents are tied up and that live transfer spills over to the rest of the agents licensed in that particular state that Ms. Jones is calling from. Now, if you're on tier one and you're licensed in 15, 20, 30 states, you're set. Especially, I'll say if you're licensed in 20 or more states and you're on tier one, you're going to write 25 to 45,000 a month. The reason I say 25 to 45,000, it really depends on how much time you spend on the phone. You might spend 37 hours a week on the phone and write 25,000, or you might spend 58 hours a week and write 42,000. Activity. There's no magic. It's activity. This is just a different platform that's more efficient. That's all. So the more states you're in, the easier it is to get live transfers. The more access the more access you'll have to outbound leads also, which are still fine. They still work. It's just if you want pick the cherry off the top. Live transfers is the way to go. Not many final expense carriers out there have live transfers. Senior Life does that to help agents write more business, so Senior Life can have more business, so Senior Life can become the largest final expense carrier in the United States sometime soon, maybe a year or two down the road, who knows. But that's Ron Powell's mission, is for Senior Life to be the biggest, the baddest final expense carrier in the jungle, period. That's what they're headed to. So that's live transfers. Now, let's start talking about some objections and introductions, et cetera, now that we've gone over some of the logistics. I sent an email out on Wednesday to everybody, whether you're on GroupMe or not. I emailed out the telesales script. I had an email that had 3 attachments. Attachments to the telesales script. Excuse me. One attachment is the telesales script. One attachment is objections for telesales. Telesales objections are different from face-to-face objections. We'll go over those in a few moments. The third attachment was a recorded training call I did a couple years ago. It's a very long recording. It's like an hour and 15 minutes, perhaps. But it's very detailed. It covers everything from A to Z on telesales. When I did a training call, I had some other agents listening in, and I think there's even some questions along the way. But everything you need to be able to do telesales is in those 3 attachments. But we're going to kind of go over those a little bit further now. When you call, and this, I'm going to assume it's an outbound call for telesales on this example I'm getting ready to give you. If you see, you see the name on the lead, let's just say it's Mary Jones. Miss Jones is our favorite person, Mary Jones. And when you dial the number, if a female answers the phone or a male answers the phone, if you're not trained well, you'll say, "May I speak to Mary Jones?" Or "Is Mary Jones in?" Or "May I speak to Mrs. Jones?" And you sound like a telemarketer. People are more sensitive nowadays to telemarketers than they used to be, because every day a lot of these people get blasted with telemarketers. So you do not want to sound like a telemarketer, because if you do, some people just hang up. It's rude, but they're thinking you're rude because they think you're a telemarketer. Call them. So you got to quickly let them know you're not a telemarketer. So when someone asks, let's say Betty Jones is on the lead and a female answers the phone, I'll say, "Betty?" And she'll probably say, "Yeah, who's this?" "Hey, this is Greg. I'm getting back in touch with that free information," yada, yada, yada. You follow the script. On the other hand, if the name on the lead is Mary Jones and a man answers the phone, I'm not going to say, "Is Mary Jones in?" or "May I speak to Miss Jones?" That worked 20 years ago, but it don't work now. Man answers the phone, I'm going to say, "Is Betty in?" Hopefully he'll say, "Hold on, let me go grab her," or "Hold on, let me go get her." But me being a male, if it's a female calling, you can get away with it. But me being a male, he might be a little inquisitive, like, what's another man calling my wife about? So he's probably going to say to me, "I'm her husband, what you need?" I'm going to say, "Hey, sir, I'm just getting back in touch with that free information she requested. Is she available?" And I kind of, let him know who I am. Hopefully he'll say, "Oh, okay, let me go grab her." When you have live transfers, you don't have to go through that hurdle. That's another advantage of live transfers. When you do telesales or field sales, we always do a warm-up at the very beginning. And the face-to-face field sales and warm-ups can be 5, maybe 10 minutes. It depends on how warm or how cool that person's attitude is to your presence. On the phone, your warm-up might take a little bit longer unless it's a live transfer. If it's a live transfer, there's no warm-up needed because Miss Jones is already warm. In fact, she's hot. She just called the commercial. She's hot. I don't need to warm her up. But if I'm calling Miss Jones back 2 days after she called the commercial, I got to warm her back up so she's back at peace with the world and get her oriented the way I want her to be. So on the phone, remember, Miss Jones cannot see you. You can't see her like you can face to face. So she's going to go by your voice. You got to sound very conversational, very casual. You do not want to sound like an insurance agent. You do not want to sound all official and da-da-da. You want to sound like the next door neighbor having a casual conversation about the high cost of funerals and how in the world can the children pay for it? They can barely pay their own bills as it is. Like we're having a cup of coffee talking about the high cost. It's just very casual. I'm listening. The script is very, very detailed. There's no one magic script. The telesales script is something I put together. And I did add a couple of things that Jen and Bianca use about legacy when they're showing the rates. But this script is tried, true, and tested. It works. When you're doing telesales, you don't have to follow this thing exactly word for word. It's kind of a track you run on in your conversation. You got to sound very, very natural. Now let's go over objections here. Let me grab my sheet. Let's pretend like